There's a moment many women reach in their fertility journey that almost nobody talks about. It's the moment when you realize you're doing everything you're told, you're making meaningful efforts, you're eating more intentionally, maybe you're taking supplements, maybe learning about your cycles. You're really trying to do everything you can to support your body. And yet, month after month, nothing changes. And a quiet question arises. If I'm trying so hard, why isn't my body responding? Today, I want to explain something that most women are never taught. Fertility is not only about how much you're doing, it's really about whether the right physiological signals are being addressed and supported. And sometimes the most powerful shifts happen not when you do more, but when you finally support the right lever. As we mentioned earlier in this series, fertility is not controlled by the ovaries alone. It's regulated by a network that includes your brain, especially the hypothalamus and pituitary glands, the adrenal system, particularly cortisol regulation, metabolic signaling, meaning insulin and blood sugar stability, the immune and inflammatory systems, specifically low-grade inflammation, and the nervous system, which is constantly scanning the body for safety. These systems constantly exchange information with each other and also with the reproductive system. So if the blood sugar is unstable, then the insulin signaling can interfere with ovulation. That's something that women with PCOS unfortunately know all too well. If your sleep is disrupted, then cortisol rhythms can alter progesterone signaling, and that's going to affect the second half of your cycle. If the nervous system remains in prolonged stress physiology, then the brain may quietly reduce reproductive signaling even when hormone labs appear to be normal. So from the outside, everything can look fine, but internally, the body may still be prioritizing safety and survival over reproduction. This reminds me of a case I had in my clinic many years ago. A woman came to see me after about 9 months of trying, and she was frustrated. And she sat down and said something I hear very often. I don't understand. I'm doing everything right. So her cycles were a bit short, around 24 days, and the focus had become on ovulation timing. Her doctor suspected that she might have been ovulating a bit early, and most of the effort had gone into trying to optimize the exact day of ovulation. But no one had asked her to chart her full cycle, or to really examine the second half of the cycle, the luteal phase, which determines whether implantation can be sustained or not. When we stepped back and looked at the broader picture, several other things became clear. First of all, she wasn't sleeping consistently and often went to bed late. Her energy dropped sharply in the second half of her cycle, and even though that's normal for a lot of women, it's not optimal. Her diet was heavily skewed toward refined carbohydrates and sugar, especially in the evenings. And she had never been shown how to track the patterns of her own cycle in a meaningful way. So instead of trying to continue pushing the ovulation timing, we focused on supporting the internal conditions that stabilize progesterone signaling, improving her sleep schedule, reducing rapid blood sugar swings, and we strengthened her with dietary changes, targeted vitamins and minerals, and a personalized Chinese medicine herbal formula. Within one cycle, she began to notice that she had more energy, and her sugar cravings had subsided, and her cycle actually began to lengthen. By the second cycle of working together, she conceived, became pregnant, and 9 months later had a healthy baby. Nothing dramatic here had been broken, but once the right physiological lever was addressed and supported, rather than simply working harder at the wrong one, well, her system shifted and fertility quickly followed. That is why fertility often improves not when a woman does more, but when the right signal is finally supported. Because the body does not respond to effort alone. It responds to the internal environment that it perceives. And there are many ways that your internal environment can quietly shape fertility, long before anything shows up on a lab test. And here are some examples. Let's start with energy availability. Your brain is constantly sensing whether your body has enough energy and resources to support pregnancy. This energy signal is influenced by how consistently you eat, what you eat, how well you sleep, whether you are hydrated, and whether your body has enough time to recover. When the body senses even subtle depletion, reproductive signalings can soften, not because something's wrong, but because pregnancy requires significant energy. Metabolic stability is another system that impacts fertility. Stable blood sugar helps the ovaries receive clear and predictable signals. When glucose and insulin rise and fall sharply, often from irregular meals, high sugar intake, or even chronic stress, ovulation signaling can become less consistent. This is one reason why many women see cycle improvements when their blood sugar stabilizes. Inflammatory load also impacts your fertility. So low-grade inflammation, even when it's not obvious, can interfere with your hormone signaling, with your egg quality, and with implantation readiness. This inflammation can come from lots of different places, like gut imbalances, immune triggers, environmental exposures, even fillings in your teeth, or prolonged stress chemistry. Your fertility is also influenced by nervous system signaling. Your reproductive system is deeply influenced by whether your body spends most of its time in stress mode or recovery mode. And these terms are really code for the sympathetic nervous system being dominant, meaning being in fight or flight mode, versus being in parasympathetic mode, which is basically rest and digest. And what most people don't know is that rest and digest goes along with reproduction. So if your body is always in stress mode, it's always in fight or flight mode, then it can't prioritize rest, digest, and reproduce. So when stress signaling is persistent, the brain may quietly prioritize survival functions over reproduction, even again if your standard hormone tests appear normal. Sleep rhythms also impact fertility, and sleep is actually one of the strongest regulators of hormone timing. Consistent sleep helps coordinate cortisol, melatonin, and progesterone. And chronic sleep disruption can gradually shift ovulation timing and also interfere with your luteal phase stability. Finally, blood flow dynamics are a really important part of your fertility. Healthy circulation to the uterus and ovaries helps deliver oxygen, nutrients, and hormonal signals to the reproductive tissues. This impacts your egg quality, but also your endometrium, which helps basically decide if your body can handle implantation and pregnancy. So this blood flow is impacted by steady vascular flow, and that's impacted or influenced by movement, stress signals, inflammation, and also by structural issues. So if we take all of these signals together, right, the energy availability, the metabolic stability, the inflammatory load, the nervous system signaling, sleep rhythms, and blood flow dynamics, when these systems and signals begin to feel stable, nourished, and consistent, then your reproductive signaling can often follow suit and become consistent as well. And this is the part that many women were never told. Fertility depends far more on stability than on perfection. So if you're in a place where you feel like you've tried everything, but nothing is moving just yet, it doesn't automatically mean that something's wrong with you. Very often it means that you just haven't yet uncovered which deeper regulatory system is still recalibrating, and you haven't yet offered it the support that it needs. Once you provide the right support, then these systems can shift, and fertility can begin to move surprisingly quickly. Remember my patient, 9 months of trying and frustration and really banging her head against the wall, and once we addressed the correct lever, within 2 months, she was pregnant. So if you would like a grounded place to begin understanding which foundational signals most strongly influence fertility and how you can support them at home using evidence-based strategies, you can check out my guide called 5 Fertility Secrets Your Body Wants You to Know. It walks through key physiological foundations that help the brain and body move toward reproductive readiness, and it shows you how to easily support them. You'll find this guide linked below. In the next episode, we'll look at one of the most powerful and, unfortunately, most misunderstood signals in this entire system. It's what I like to call the fertility stress trap, because many women are working incredibly hard to improve their fertility, while possibly and unknowingly activating the very stress pathways that make conception harder. Once you understand how this mechanism works, many confusing fertility patterns suddenly start to make sense. So I'll leave you with this. Your body isn't broken. Your symptoms aren't random. And fertility doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to support, especially the right support. Take this as an invitation to listen to your body more gently, more compassionately, and more purposefully. Your body is wiser than you think.